First Contact Protocol. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the UES Pathfinder, Earth's first interstellar diplomatic vessel, watching as the massive structure of Concordia Station grew larger against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars. After decades of listening to the sky, humanity had finally received an answer. Now, 6 months after that historic transmission, they were about to meet the representatives of the Galactic Confederacy face to face. "Impressive, isn't it?" said Dr. Marcus Way, the expedition's lead xenobiologist, as he joined her at the viewport. 73 known species coexisting in one political entity. Everything we thought we knew about biology, sociology, even physics, it's all about to change. Sarah nodded, her expression a careful mask of professional detachment despite the excitement churning in her stomach. "Let's just hope we make a good first impression. The fate of Earth could depend on it." Concordia Station. This is UES Pathfinder requesting approach vector and docking instructions. Lieutenant Rivera called from the communications console. A melodic, slightly synthetic voice responded immediately. "UES Pathfinder, this is Concordia Traffic Control. Approach vector transmitted. Proceed to Docking Bay 94, Sector 7. Welcome to the Galactic Confederacy." Sarah turned to her crew, all hand-picked from Earth's best and brightest. "This is it, people. Humanity's formal introduction to the galaxy. Let's make it count." The approach and docking proceeded smoothly, the Pathfinder systems interfacing seamlessly with the station's guidance controls. Sarah had expected more difficulties given the presumed technological gap, but the Confederacy had provided compatible protocols in their earlier communications. As the docking clamps engaged with a slight shudder, Sarah straightened her midnight blue uniform and addressed the 12 crew members assembled in the airlock chamber. "Remember your training. Be respectful, observant, and above all, diplomatic. We represent not just ourselves, but all of humanity." The airlock cycled open to reveal a reception committee of beings so diverse that Sarah's mind struggled to process them all at once. Bipedal, quadrupedal, floating, slithering. Representatives of at least a dozen distinct species stood arranged in what appeared to be a ceremonial formation. A tall, willowy figure with iridescent skin and 4 arms stepped forward. "Commander Chen, I am Ambassador Telix of the Athosian Collective, appointed liaison to Earth. On behalf of the Galactic Confederacy, I welcome you and your species to the greater community of sentient beings." Sarah stepped forward and bowed slightly. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we thank you for your welcome and look forward to peaceful relations with the Confederacy." Telix's large, pupilless eyes blinked in sequence. "Please, follow me. The Confederation Council awaits your formal introduction." As they proceeded through the station, Sarah and her crew couldn't help but stare. The corridors teemed with alien life, architecture that defied Earth conventions, and technology that seemed to blend seamlessly with organic components. "The station appears to be sectioned by environmental preferences," Dr. Way whispered, his scientific curiosity overwhelming his sense of decorum. "Look at the atmospheric barriers and gravity differentials." Indeed, as they walked, Sarah noticed subtle shifts in temperature, humidity, and gravity as they passed through nearly invisible force fields separating different sections. "You are observant, Dr. Way," said Telix without turning around. Concordia Station serves as home to representatives from all Confederacy worlds, each with their unique biological requirements. They passed through a bustling marketplace where traders of all shapes and sizes hawked wares from across the galaxy. Some aliens gave them curious looks. Others seemed to actively avoid their path. "Ambassador Telix," Sarah asked, noting the behavior, "I get the sense that some of your people are uncomfortable with our presence." Telix's pace slowed slightly. "You must understand, Commander, humans are unusual by Confederacy standards. Your planet, Earth, would be classified as what we term a death world." "A death world?" Lieutenant Rivera echoed. "Yes, a planet with environmental conditions considered extremely hostile by Confederacy norms. High gravity, atmospheric toxins, extreme temperature variations, dangerous flora and fauna, frequent natural disasters. Earth possesses many such characteristics. Sarah exchanged glances with her crew. What they had always considered normal was apparently terrifying to most galactic species. Species that evolve on death worlds tend to develop certain traits. Telex continued, choosing words carefully. Enhanced physical strength, accelerated healing, aggressive tendencies, heightened pain tolerance, and extreme adaptability. These traits are necessary for survival on such worlds but can be concerning in interspecies relations. Before Sarah could respond, a commotion erupted ahead. A group of beings with chitinous exoskeletons and 4 arms were engaged in what appeared to be a heated argument with station security. Unlike the generally slender builds of most aliens they'd seen, these beings were solid, muscular, their movements quick and precise. Valerians, Telex said, a new tension in their voice. Another Deathworld species. They joined the Confederacy 80 years ago. They are still adjusting. Sarah watched as the Valerians finally backed down, their mandibles clicking rapidly in what she assumed was their language. As they turned to leave, one of them locked eyes with Sarah. Something passed between them, a moment of recognition, perhaps. Then the Valerian nodded slightly before departing with its companions. They recognized us as fellow Deathworlders, Dr. Way murmured. Fascinating. The council chamber was a vast amphitheater, with tiered seating arranged in a full circle around a central platform. Hundreds of representatives from across the Confederacy filled the seats, creating a dizzying mosaic of colors, shapes, and sizes. The human delegation will now present themselves to the council, announced a disembodied voice that echoed throughout the chamber. Sarah led her team onto the central platform, feeling the weight of countless alien gazes upon them. At a subtle gesture from Telex, she stepped forward. Honorable representatives of the Galactic Confederacy, I am Commander Sarah Chen of Earth. We come in peace and friendship, eager to join the greater galactic community. A tall, skeletal being with gray skin and elongated features rose from a prominent position. I am High Counselor Zethran of the Illurian Dominion. While we welcome new species to our Confederacy, we must acknowledge certain concerns regarding your planet of origin. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Earth has been classified as a Class 4 Deathworld, Zethran continued, his tone carrying an edge of disdain. Your species has evolved in conditions most civilized beings would find lethal. Your physical capabilities exceed safety parameters for normal interaction. Sarah maintained her diplomatic composure despite the implied insult. With respect, Counselor, our evolutionary history has also gifted us with creativity, resilience, and a strong drive to overcome challenges. These qualities could benefit the Confederacy as much as physical attributes. Indeed, came a new voice, deep and resonant. The Valerian stepped forward from one of the lower tiers. I am Commander Kavarn of Valeria. Our species too faced suspicion upon joining the Confederacy, yet we have proven valuable members despite our Deathworld origins. Zethran's expression tightened. The integration of Valeria remains an ongoing process, Commander Kavarn, one that still presents significant challenges. The tension in the chamber was palpable. Sarah realized that despite the Confederacy's apparent diversity, there existed deep undercurrents of prejudice and fear, particularly directed at species like humans and Valerians. Perhaps, said a new voice, soft but authoritative, we should allow our human guests time to acclimate before burdening them with our political complexities. This came from a luminescent being that seemed more energy than matter. A reasonable suggestion, Counselor Ileana, Zethran conceded, though his eyes remained cold. Commander Chen, your delegation will be provided appropriate quarters in Sector 7. For everyone's comfort and safety, please remain in designated areas until proper orientation can be completed. In other words, Sarah thought, they were being segregated. Glancing at Kavarn, She saw the Valerian's compound eyes narrow slightly. He gave her another, almost imperceptible nod before stepping back. "We appreciate your hospitality," Sarah replied, her voice betraying none of her concerns. "And we look forward to learning more about the Confederacy and all its peoples." As they were escorted from the chamber, Dr. Wei leaned close to Sarah. "Did you notice? We're being quartered in Sector 7, the same sector where we saw the Valerians earlier." "I noticed," Sarah murmured. "It seems Deathworlders stick together in this galaxy, whether by choice or by force." Lieutenant Rivera's expression darkened. "They're afraid of us." "Perhaps," Sarah replied, watching as various aliens gave them a wide berth in the corridors. "But fear can transform into respect, given time and opportunity." What she didn't say was that she sensed an opportunity approaching, one that would demonstrate exactly why Deathworlders, like humans and Valerians, had survived their harsh home planets. Evolution had forged them in fire and pressure, creating species that didn't just survive adversity but thrived in it. And soon, the Galactic Confederacy would learn exactly what that strength in adversity. 3 days into their stay on Concordia Station, Sarah was beginning to understand the subtle politics of the Galactic Confederacy. While officially welcomed, humans were treated with a mixture of fascination and fear. Their quarters in Sector 7 were comfortable, but isolated from the station's main activities. Every human movement was accompanied by security personnel, ostensibly for their protection and guidance. "It's a quarantine zone," Lieutenant Rivera said bluntly as the senior staff gathered in Sarah's quarters. "They've put all the species they consider dangerous in one sector, away from their precious, standard worlds." "I wouldn't go that far," Dr. Wei countered. "But there is definitely a social stratification based on planet of origin. The Valerians we've met express similar frustrations. 80 years in the Confederacy, and they're still treated as potential threats." Sarah paced the room, processing what they'd learned. Ambassador Telix has been apologetic, but insistent that these temporary measures are for everyone's safety until proper integration protocols can be established. Integration protocols that have apparently failed for the Valerians after 8 decades, Rivera noted dryly. A chime at the door interrupted them. Sarah opened it to find Commander Kavarn, the Valerian who had spoken at the council meeting. Up close, his chitinous exoskeleton gleamed with iridescent blues and greens, and his 4 arms were held in what she'd learned was a formal greeting posture. "Commander Chen, I hope I'm not intruding," Kavarn said, his mandibles moving in subtle patterns that accompanied his words. "I believe it's time we had a proper conversation, one Deathworlder to another." Sarah invited him in, noting how her crew instinctively straightened their postures. Despite their diplomatic mission, humans retained military habits when facing the unknown. "Your arrival has caused quite a stir in the Confederacy," Kavarn said once introductions were complete. "Another Deathworld species, and one with remarkable similarities to Valerians in terms of physical resilience and adaptability. Yet we look nothing alike," Sarah observed. "Convergent evolution on separate planets producing similar traits for survival." Kavarn's compound eyes gleamed with intelligence. "Precisely why I'm here. The Confederacy fears what it does not understand and what it cannot control. Species like ours represent both." "They've made that abundantly clear," Rivera interjected. "The security details, the restricted access, the condescending explanations of how we might accidentally hurt someone with our excessive strength. It was the same for us," Kavarn said. "When Valeria joined the Confederacy, we were treated as barely controlled animals. Over decades, we've proven our value through service and sacrifice, yet still face systemic prejudice." Sarah leaned forward. "Is that why you approached us in the council?" "Solidarity." "Partially," Kavarn admitted, "but also pragmatism. Together, our voices might carry more weight." And he hesitated, mandibles clicking softly. "There are elements within the Confederacy who actively work to marginalize Deathworld species, I believe." The rest of his sentence was cut off as the station's alarms blared to life. Red emergency lighting bathed the room as the station's AI voice announced, AT-Hintayon, ALD PEORSONEL. Environmental systems malfunction, DTECTED. Life support compromised in multiple ECTORs. This is not a drill. Kivarn's posture shifted instantly to alert. That's not possible. Concordia's environmental systems have redundancies upon redundancies. Sarah was already moving, her crew falling in behind her, unless it's not a malfunction. Lieutenant Rivera, grab emergency gear. Dr. Wei, bring your medical kit. As they exited the quarters, chaos greeted them. The corridor was filled with panicking aliens, many already showing signs of distress from changing environmental conditions. Temperature was rising rapidly, and the air felt thinner. The atmospheric composition is shifting, Kivarn said, checking a device on his wrist. Oxygen levels dropping, carbon dioxide increasing. For many Confederacy species, this is already approaching lethal conditions. Sarah glanced at her crew, noting they were uncomfortable but functional. And for Deathworlders, unpleasant but survivable, Kivarn confirmed. Our homeworlds prepared us for far worse. A station security officer, a reptilian being struggling to breathe in the changing atmosphere, approached them. You must return to quarters. Emergency protocols. With respect, Sarah interrupted firmly. We can help. My crew and I can withstand these conditions better than most of your people. Let us assist with evacuation and stabilization efforts. The officer hesitated, ingrained prejudice warring with practical necessity as more aliens around them began to collapse. Kivarn stepped forward. I am invoking Emergency Directive 7. As a Confederacy commander with highest environmental tolerance rating, I am assuming coordination of rescue operations in this sector. The directive seemed to carry weight, as the officer reluctantly nodded before sliding down against a wall, clearly struggling. Dr. Wei, stabilize him, Sarah ordered, then turned to Kivarn. What's our priority? Central environmental control, he answered immediately. If we can restore proper settings from there, we save everyone. It's 4 levels up, Section 12. Sarah nodded. Rivera, coordinate with any able-bodied Valerians to establish safe zones and begin evacuation of those most affected. Dr. Wei, once he's stable, set up a triage area in the main hall. It had multiple air supplies when we toured it yesterday. And you? Rivera asked. Sarah exchanged a look with Kivarn. We're going to fix this station. The journey to Central Environmental Control was harrowing. As they moved further from Sector 7, conditions deteriorated dramatically. Bodies of unconscious aliens littered the corridors, some being dragged to safety by the few species hardy enough to remain functional. The atmospheric composition is still shifting, Kivarn noted grimly. This is deliberate. Someone has overridden the safety protocols. Sarah, now breathing through an emergency filter, nodded. Terrorism or sabotage? Perhaps both, Kivarn replied. There are factions that resent the Confederacy's expansion, believing it dilutes the influence of founding species. They encountered a sealed security door blocking access to the environmental control sector. The access panel was physical rather than biometric, a safety feature to ensure access during system failures. Stand back, Sarah said, examining the door's hydraulic mechanism. Using strength that would have impressed even on Earth, she forced her fingers into the seam of the door and pulled. Muscles training. Face reddening with effort, she managed to create a gap large enough for Kivarn to insert all 4 of his arms. Together, they forced the door open wide enough to slip through. Inside, the Environmental Control Center was deserted, or so it appeared initially. As they approached the central console, they discovered an unconscious technician on the floor. The main control screens displayed warning signals across all systems. He tried to stop it, Kivarn said, checking the alien's vital signs. Still alive, but barely. Sarah examined the console. Despite the alien interface, She could recognize a sabotaged system when she saw one. The primary controls are locked, but the physical override should still work if we can access it. Kavarn moved to a panel on the far wall. Here, but it requires simultaneous activation from two different positions. A safety measure to prevent exactly this kind of sabotage, Sarah concluded. I'll take this side. The physical override system required significant strength to operate, a design feature to ensure it couldn't be triggered accidentally. For most Confederacy species, it would have required specialized tools. For a human and a Valerian, it was challenging but achievable. As they strained against the resistant mechanisms, the station shuddered around them. Warning: atmospheric pressure reaching critical levels in sectors 3 through 12, announced the AI. Structural integrity compromised. Now, Kavarn shouted, and they both applied maximum force to their respective controls. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a groan of protesting machinery, the override engaged. Emergency systems began reactivating one by one. Initiating emergency atmospheric restoration, the AI announced. Please stand by. Sarah allowed herself a moment of relief before activating her communicator. Chen to Rivera. Environmental controls restored. Status report. We've established 3 safe zones. Rivera responded, the sound of organized chaos in the background. Dr. Wei is coordinating medical response with some Athosian healers who managed to adapt. Several hundred affected, but no confirmed fatalities yet. Have station security found the saboteurs? Negative. Station's in lockdown, but whoever did this could be anywhere, or may have already escaped. Sarah exchanged a significant look with Kavarn. Keep the rescue operations going. We'll regroup at the safe zone after we secure this position. Over the next several hours, Sarah and her crew worked alongside Kavarn and other Valerians to stabilize the station. Their natural resilience allowed them to venture into areas still too hostile for other species, retrieving trapped or unconscious victims and bringing them to safety. When High Counselor Zethran finally arrived at the primary safe zone, accompanied by a security detail, he found humans and Valerians working in seamless coordination, having saved hundreds of lives. It appears, he said stiffly to Sarah and Kavarn, that we owe you a debt of gratitude. With respect, Counselor, Sarah replied, exhaustion evident, but her bearing still proud. What you owe us is respect. Not as dangerous curiosities to be contained, but as allies whose very nature made us uniquely equipped to help in this crisis. Kavarn's mandibles clicked in agreement. The very traits that caused the Confederacy to fear Deathworlders are what allowed us to save countless lives today. Zethran's expression was unreadable, but he inclined his head slightly. Perhaps there is wisdom in your words. The Council will convene once the station is secure to discuss this incident and your role in resolving it. As he walked away, Rivera joined them. You think this changes anything? Sarah watched Confederacy medical teams treating the injured, many stealing glances at the humans and Valerians who had rescued them. Glances no longer filled with fear alone, but with something that might, given time, evolve into respect. It's a start, she said simply. After all, nothing breaks down barriers quite like surviving a crisis together. Kavarn made a sound that Sarah was beginning to recognize as the Valerian equivalent of a chuckle. You know, Commander Chen, I think our species are going to get along just fine. Sarah smiled. That's what I'm counting on, Commander Kavarn. Because I suspect this crisis isn't over yet. It's just beginning. The investigation. The aftermath of what was now being called the atmospheric incident transformed Concordia Station. Emergency repairs continued around the clock, with species from across the Confederacy contributing their expertise. But beneath the cooperative veneer, tension simmered. Sarah found herself in an unexpected new role. What had begun as Earth's first diplomatic contact had evolved into something far more complex. When Ambassador Telix requested her presence in the station's security center, she knew the situation was changing again. The Council has authorized a formal investigation, Telex explained, leading Sarah through a series of secure corridors. And they have specifically requested your involvement. Sarah raised an eyebrow. That's surprising, given their previous attitude toward humans. Telex's four hands made a complex gesture that Sarah had learned indicated discomfort with the subject. Recent events have adjusted certain perspectives. Your species' actions during the crisis demonstrated qualities beyond mere physical resilience. The Security Center was a hive of activity, with representatives from at least a dozen species analyzing data and coordinating recovery efforts. Commander Kavarn stood at a central holographic display, deep in conversation with a diminutive furred alien. Commander Chen, Kavarn greeted her. Allow me to introduce Chief Investigator Nix Aura of the Confederacy Security Division. The small alien's fur rippled in what Sarah interpreted as a greeting. Your reputation precedes you, Commander. Your actions saved many lives. Just doing what anyone would in the situation, Sarah replied. That is precisely incorrect, Nix Aura said with unexpected bluntness. What you and the Valerians accomplished could not have been done by most Confederacy species. This is why you are here. The holographic display showed a three-dimensional model of the station, with certain sections highlighted in red. The sabotage was sophisticated and coordinated, Kavarn explained. Primary and backup systems were compromised simultaneously at 7 different junctions. This required intimate knowledge of station operations and security protocols. An inside job, Sarah concluded. Precisely, Nix Aura confirmed. What is more concerning is the pattern of the attack. The environmental systems were manipulated to create conditions particularly lethal to most Confederacy species but survivable for Deathworlders, Sarah finished. You think someone was targeting everyone but us. Kavarn's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. It appears designed to create maximum casualties while leaving humans and Valerians relatively unaffected. The implication hung heavy in the air. Sarah's mind raced through the possibilities. So either someone was trying to help us in a twisted way, or more likely, Kavarn said grimly, setting us up to take the blame. Nix Aura nodded, fur rippling with distress. Indeed, had you not acted so quickly to save others, suspicion would have fallen heavily on both your species. As it is, there are still murmurs. We need to find who's responsible, Sarah said firmly, and quickly. The investigation team formed around Sarah and Kavarn was an unlikely coalition. Lieutenant Rivera brought her security expertise, while Dr. Wei contributed scientific analysis. From the Valerians came Tilok, a systems specialist, and from the Confederacy, Nix Aura provided institutional knowledge and access. Their first breakthrough came when analyzing the command protocols used to override environmental controls. There, Tilok said, her mandibles clicking excitedly as she pointed to a data stream. The authentication codes used originated from a High Council terminal. Nix Aura's fur stood on end. That's impossible. High Council access is biometrically secured and continuously monitored. Yet the evidence is clear, Dr. Wei said, examining the data. Unless, could the logs themselves have been altered? This led them down a rabbit hole of increasingly sophisticated security breaches. For 3 days, they worked tirelessly, uncovering layer after layer of deception. Each answer raised new questions, and each question pointed toward higher levels of Confederacy governance. On the 4th day, Sarah received an anonymous message requesting a meeting in a rarely used maintenance section of Sector 9. Recognizing the potential danger but unwilling to ignore a possible lead, she informed only Kavarn of her plans. This is almost certainly a trap, Kavarn warned as they made their way through the dimly lit maintenance tunnels. Almost certainly, Sarah agreed, checking the compact energy weapon she'd been issued as part of the investigation team. But traps can catch the setter if you're prepared. They found the meeting point, a junction between environmental processing units, seemingly deserted. Sarah was about to suggest they withdraw when a shadow detached itself from between 2 massive filtration tanks. Commander Chen, Commander Kavarn, thank you for coming. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing itself as a Mendelian, one of the Confederacy's founding species, known for their photographic memories and administrative roles. You're taking a significant risk contacting us, Sarah said cautiously. Less risk than remaining silent, given recent events. The Mendelian's voice trembled slightly. My name is Tarek. I work in council administration, specifically record-keeping for High Council sessions. Kavarn's posture tensed. You have information about the attack. Not directly, Tarek admitted, but I have noticed inconsistencies, closed council sessions with no records, security protocols changed without proper authorization, communication scrubbed from the official logs. When did this begin? Sarah asked. Shortly after your arrival was announced, Tarek said, looking directly at Sarah, and intensifying after the first council meeting where you were introduced. Sarah and Kavarn exchanged glances. That aligns with our timeline, Kavarn noted. There's more, Tarek continued, nervously glancing around. There's a faction within the High Council, mostly comprising representatives from founding worlds, who believe the Confederacy has been weakened by its expansion. They call themselves the Purists. Let me guess, Sarah said grimly. They're particularly concerned about Deathworld species. Tarek nodded. They see you as a threat to their vision of galactic civilization. When the Valerians joined, this faction was smaller, less organized. Now, with humanity's arrival and the potential for alliance between two Deathworld species, they're afraid, Kavarn concluded. Terror would be more accurate, Tarek said. I can't prove they're behind the atmospheric sabotage, but the timing, the pattern of security breaches, it aligns with their access and capabilities. Why tell us this? Sarah asked. You're risking everything. Tarek's expression hardened. Because the Confederacy was founded on principles of unity and mutual benefit, not fear and prejudice. What they're doing betrays everything we claim to stand for. After Tarek departed, Sarah and Kavarn made their way back through the maintenance tunnels in thoughtful silence. If the Purists have High Council members in their ranks, Kavarn finally said, our investigation will hit barriers at every turn. Sarah nodded. We need concrete evidence, something that can't be dismissed or buried. And we need allies, Kavarn added. Not just among Deathworlders, but across the Confederacy. When they returned to the security center, they found it in disarray. Nixora rushed toward them, fur bristling with agitation. Where have you been? We've been trying to contact you for the past hour. Communications blackout in the maintenance tunnels, Sarah explained smoothly. What's happened? The investigation has been officially reassigned, Nixora said bitterly, by direct order of High Counselor Zethran himself. All our findings are to be transferred to a special committee under his supervision. They're shutting us down, Kavarn growled. Dr. Wei approached, carrying a datapad. Not before we made copies of everything, he said quietly, including some files we decrypted just before the order came through. He handed the pad to Sarah. You need to see this. The files contained communications between several High Council members, including Zethran, discussing the Deathworlder problem and the need for decisive action to preserve Confederacy values. While carefully worded to avoid explicit statements, the intent was clear, particularly one message sent just hours before the atmospheric sabotage. The demonstration has been prepared. When the undesirables reveal their true nature, the Council will have no choice but to implement containment protocols. This is circumstantial, Sarah said, frustration evident in her voice. Damning, but not definitive proof. There's more, Talok said, joining them. We managed to trace the actual command sequence that initiated the sabotage. It came from a terminal in Zethran's private chambers, authenticated with his biometrics. Kavarn's mandibles clicked rapidly. That would be enough for an arrest warrant on any Confederacy world. But not for a High Counselor, Nixora said sadly. They have diplomatic immunity. Only the full Council can authorize their detention, and with the purists holding significant influence. Sarah studied the evidence, mind racing. Then we don't go through regular channels. We take this directly to the full council, publicly, where it can't be buried. That would violate dozens of protocols. Nixora objected. So did attempting to murder hundreds of station residents, Rivera pointed out. Kavarn studied Sarah with his compound eyes. You're suggesting we force a confrontation. I'm suggesting we give the Confederacy a chance to live up to its ideals, Sarah replied. The purists are counting on bureaucracy and procedure to shield them. Let's use that same devotion to protocols against them. How? Dr. Way asked. Sarah smiled grimly. There's one protocol even a high counselor can't ignore: the right of any species to request an emergency audience when presenting evidence of an existential threat to the Confederacy itself. Nixora's fur rippled with surprise. The seventh protocol. That hasn't been invoked in over 3 centuries. Then it's overdue, Sarah said firmly. Lieutenant Rivera, work with T-Lock to compile our evidence into an irrefutable package. Dr. Way, I need you to review Confederacy law regarding the 7th protocol. Find any precedents we can use. Nixora, can we count on your support when this goes before the council? The small alien hesitated only briefly before straightening to attention. The Security Division serves the Confederacy, not individual counselors. If you have evidence of a conspiracy against multiple member species, my duty is clear. Kavarn placed one of his 4 hands on Sarah's shoulder, a gesture of solidarity that would have been impossible to imagine just days earlier. You realize, he said quietly, that if we're wrong, or even if we're right, but can't convince the council, the diplomatic repercussions for both our species could be severe. Sarah met his compound gaze steadily. And if we do nothing, we condemn our people to permanent second-class status in the Confederacy, or worse, if the purists decide to escalate beyond sabotage. Kavarn's mandibles formed what Sarah had learned was the Valerian equivalent of a determined smile. Then let us prepare for battle, Commander Chen. Not with weapons, but with truth, which can be the most devastating force of all. As the team dispersed to their tasks, Sarah found herself standing before the holographic display of Concordia Station. Somewhere within its vast structure, Zethran and his allies were undoubtedly moving to counter any threat to their power and prejudice. The coming confrontation would determine not just the future of human Confederacy relations, but potentially the soul of the Confederacy itself. And Sarah was determined.